Let's go! Hey friends, welcome to STEM class number 7 on RC cars. Just when you thought I may have run out of RC cars, not even close. So as you saw, today's class is on giant RC trucks, and the main thing about them is they are non-hobby RC trucks, but they're huge. Now, the one that is closest to being a hobby vehicle is actually the oldest. So I'm going to go through them and highlight the various features of these vehicles. All right, so the oldest one here is the Radio Shack Fierce Warrior Off-Roader, but actually it's not. The body is. The actual body was a green truck called the Extreme Machine, and I didn't really like the Extreme Machine that much. However, you can see the Extreme Machine in an episode that I did with Clodbuster, because I didn't like the Clodbuster truck body, and I put the Extreme Machine on that. So if you're actually interested in seeing the Extreme Machine body, that's in episode 37. But anyhow, this is the Extreme Machine chassis, but I've made some modifications along with the body. So changed the body, and then I put a different bumper on it. I put one that actually belonged to a armored Radio Shack vehicle, and so that way, you know, it's kind of a different design, so it could like hit clumps and kind of ride over it. So the thing about this truck is it is kind of hobby quality. Unlike the other ones. It has, if you can take a look down here, big 540 motors, okay? See those down there? It's got two. One for the front and one for the back. And then you have your springs, suspension. And you actually, if it breaks, you can change out parts. So the wheels, you can take these wheels off, and it is possible to change the connecting pieces in the hubs, and it is also possible to change the motors as well. So I have changed the motors on this before, and then I ended up changing them back because it just didn't make that much of a difference without sacrificing battery life. So this is a very heavy vehicle. It's a really heavy plastic. It's at least 10 pounds. And when it first came out, the batteries were 1200 milliamps, maybe 1500 milliamps NiCads. And if you put a 3300 nickel metal hydride on it, you can get maybe run it for half an hour. Whereas with the old NiCads, it would run really for maybe 8 minutes. And that battery would go down in here. And it's similar chassis design to the Super Lobo, except that you see where the Super Lobo had the 4 AA's that ran the steering and the receiver. This does not. They basically just use the battery, the big 7.2 volt nickel metal hydride or nickel cadmium battery to run everything. So that it saves on weight. You know, it's already heavy, so I guess that's what they were thinking. It of course doesn't save on voltage, you know, distribution, because before you had the 6 volts of AA's that were running the steering separately, but it works fine. It's heavy duty. You have your metal steering rods. You can hear the servo moving in there. You have the metal dog bones down in there. And this is 4-wheel drive. What it is you have a transmission in the back, and a separate transmission in the front with the let's get that separate transmission in the front with the differential, a simple differential, and so you have those lined up together through the electronics to power at the same time. And we're going to see that run later. It was, although a big and impressive vehicle, and I believe it was around $129 to $149, because of the battery technology and the weight of it, it just didn't run that long. So it was disappointing for a lot of people. I remember a lot of people, complaining about how it didn't run very long. But like I said, with the new batteries, it runs pretty good. And before I leave this vehicle, I also want to tell you that though this was Radio Shack, it is a Nico product, and because it also went by the name Thor for the Nico brand, that was a Toys R Us. Nico and Tamiya shared a lot of parts. Tamiya is a hobby vehicle. The next oldest vehicle over here is this new Bright. So there's different ways to tackle the story of these gigantic radio-controlled cars. One of them is there's 3 of these are actually new Bright. And this is not just the second oldest vehicle here. This is a 2002 toy, and it represents the 2002 Avalanche. And so, it's 21 years old. And it is a new Bright, and it represents how different new Bright was back then. And it's a very different product than what you could get today. Now, I have a bunch of pictures of this that you're going to see, with this video, and it's highly detailed. So what you'll notice here, it actually has rear view mirrors with little mirrors on them, and they fold in, and it actually came with extra ones in case you broke them. It has a truck bed. Now there was a piece here, I lost it. I don't know where it is, but that folds up, and then your truck bed goes down like that. You have a spring suspension. You can see that in the front and back. You have good rubber tires. They do not come off easily, if they come off at all. You have door handles, doors that open, and I showed you the inside is Lara Croft and Wonder Woman, and the interior is very detailed, and I'm going to show you pictures of that. And then that kind of snaps shut, actually. And you can see in the front, it has really attractive front, and it's pretty heavy. And so this is not anything like you would get new Bright today. And this is the underside of it. I made a custom modification to this. It ran with initially this kind of battery over here. See this? It's like a hard plastic 9.6 volt battery pack. They work all right, and they come sometimes nickel cadmium or nickel metal hydride. The problem is that when they go bad, it might be difficult to get another one. So I modified this so that it runs on your regular 9.6 volt battery, and I opened that up and showed you a picture of that. This thing also makes lights and sounds, and this is, I found where that wire was inside, and I drilled a hole and I added some wires to it, and I made it so that I can have a disconnect. So if I didn't feel like having it make engine noise all the time, I can do that. And let's see, that on-off switch is, this is actually right here, that's your steering, your manual steering adjustment. And your on-off switch is right here. So you hear that? So that's fun, but it can be annoying. This also has 2-speed transmission in the back. You have your high and your low, but it has even more than that. It's pretty sophisticated, and I'm going to show you how that is. This is the remote for the vehicle. It has a horn. Oh, Wait a minute. Oh, I got to check this out. Hang on. All right, so I just had a little bit of a loose connection. Let's see, there's the horn button. And it actually has a gear shifter. So not only does it have two different speeds with an actual gear, but this here actually changes the voltage that goes to the motor, and it goes faster, and I will demonstrate that for you later. You have your left and right steering, your forward, and then this is, you can lock the vehicle. Watch this. And then you have the little light right here to tell you that the alarm is on. Isn't that neat? So it's quite a contrast to what you would get today. And not only that, but when you go forward and reverse, it has headlights for going forward, it has rear brake lights for going backwards, and when you turn, the turn signals go off on the left and right side. So I'm going to show you all that later. So quite a vehicle, isn't it? It's really something neat. All right, so this Polaris is not that old of a vehicle. It's been out for about 3 years, and you can see in comparison to the size, it's quite a bit smaller, but it's the same scale. A Polaris is smaller than a Chevy Avalanche, and it is a new Bright product as well. And it has big sticky tires with a good knobby off-road style. You have big nylon, look at that, you have big nylon pieces here that hold the wheel hub, right, that just hold that. And then you have actually nylon dog bones, see that in there? So this is one of those vehicles where it has two motors. It has, there's a little motor in the front, okay, that runs the drive shaft to the front, and it has the same thing in the back. So they're two small motors. This is actually not a very powerful vehicle. I got it for, God, really cheap, like I think $30, $40. And I know this vehicle is normally $80, and I'm so glad I didn't pay the full price for it. It was a Walmart that was closing, and so I got it real cheap. And with these tiny motors, that's all it's worth. As much as it's big, performance-wise, it's not that great. The Chevy Avalanche, actually, I should mention, I remember getting that 1 years ago at Circuit City at the, it was Black Friday. And this was a vehicle that I think was originally over $100, and it was $50. I do know I paid $50. So I have a good memory for remembering a lot of what I paid for things. All right. The next things that I bought were, now not necessarily in order with everything, but another thing I bought are these two vehicles here. Now, they actually were the same vehicle. So I got these at Burlington Coat Factory after Christmas, and these things were like $70 a piece, but I do know that I got them for about $25 clearance. They have a spring suspension, but they actually have independent spring suspensions for each wheel. So it's independent, but it's neat. It's actually a different design. See how it's on an arm, and each wheel is on its own arm. And what it does is it has a series of gears. So you have, inside here, you have a motor for each side, and then it has, I think it's a worm gear. It's like a long gear that twists, and then that goes to a transmission piece here that goes to the tire. And if you turn one wheel, the other one goes. Okay, so it's four-wheel drive. It'll pop wheelies, and you have your guy on top that kind of leans into the turns, and he actually comes off. You can unlock his leg here, and you see his arm comes off, and he's actually a fully articulated action figure. His head, can move all around. So that's pretty cool. So I wanted to keep one in the original, everything original on it. It runs on that solid 9.6 volt battery pack. This one over here, like that I showed you. And what that does is on this vehicle, it slides. This turns here on the bottom, and then that slides out. And so then the battery, it fits up inside here. And why that's important to show you is, once again, that's the principle of having the low center of gravity, everything in the middle, to give the vehicle stability. These tires, these are the beginning of the experiment with foam tires. So they're very light. They're hollow. You can squish them a little bit. They're kind of delicate in a way, though. So the vehicle's not that fast. It is designed for going over dirt and mud and things like that. So, they really, if it were a fast vehicle, they couldn't handle the torsion. This foam would get torn up. But as you can see, and as you see probably on all my vehicles, even if they're 30 years old, the tires are always in really good condition. I'm not really rough on my cars. My thing with the vehicles is, oh, look, this is how it's made, and how's the technology, and okay, that's cool, and goes back on the shelf, and every once in a while I'll play with it in the snow or just, real gently. I wanted to make a little gravedigger version of it, so I took that body off, and I took a small gravedigger, and I just, screwed that down onto there. So now I have had a gravedigger with gigantic tires, and I actually got to ride in one of the real gravediggers years ago when you were on your way down to North Carolina. Going through North Carolina, the gravedigger garage was down there, and you could pay to ride in the back of the gravedigger. You can have 6 or 8 people in the back, and they would take you for a ride on this little course, and they'd run over some cars and go up a really steep turn and jump the thing as well. And they stopped doing it because of insurance. So I was very lucky that me and Mrs. One got to go on the gravedigger back then. So, there's a little bit of sentiment on, the memories of gravedigger. Now, the last gigantic vehicle, and I know you've seen these in stores. You can still see them. These big, giant, this is it's like a harder styrofoam wheel. So again, they're continuing the foam theme, but see, these are hollow, and these are not. They are solid styrofoam, and they put a piece of rubber in the middle to give it some traction, and also so that the styrofoam wasn't the only thing making contact with maybe a street. And I think that's important because actually this vehicle is not slow. It is surprisingly nimble. It is not, in my opinion, worth $109. That is definitely way more than the vehicle's worth. But it is fun because it is faster and has more torque than you would think. Now, I was really fortunate that I went into a Walmart that had this for $25. And so I'm like, all right, you know what? $25. Let's see how this big, silly-looking RC vehicle is. If it's any good, it actually has a spring suspension. It is only rear-wheel drive. But if you'll remember from one of my other STEM class videos, if the tires are big enough and the the motor is powerful enough, rear-wheel drive can work just almost as well as four-wheel drive in a lot of circumstances. And you can see how that swings there. You have how the steering bar swings along with the springs. So that's kind of neat. But yeah, so this vehicle has enough torque and enough speed and big enough tires that it'll ride pretty much over most everything. Of course, you are limited to what kind of incline you can go up because it's not a real powerful motor. If you look here in the back, now it's not a tiny motor. This is the motor right here. It's not tiny, but it's not big. It's not even a 540. It's probably like a 260, at the most a 380. But it does seem to have a pretty sizable transmission in here. And it has another air vent here for a heat sink. probably for some kind of gearing in there. So that makes sense because it's pretty quick. Now, it's also really light. It's probably about 3 pounds. These vehicles here, they're going to be around 5 pounds each. The Polaris is probably around 7 pounds. The Avalanche is about 10 pounds. And the Radio Shack Fierce Warrior, that's about 11, 12 pounds. And then this gigantic, it's not as big as that Gravedigger, but it's close. And I'm going to show you that right here. Take a look at that. Okay? This thing is over 12 pounds. It is really heavy. The tires are solid, hard plastic. I mean, they have a little bit of give to them, but not much. Because of its weight, it has to have a lot of torque in order to power this thing. And it does have a lot of torque. It's actually, listen to it. You actually can't, it doesn't move easily at all. And what that means, when something is not easy to move, that means the gears are very low. So it's just like with your bicycle that, you know, as I was giving you that reference, if you have a bigger gear turning a little gear, you have more speed. If you want more torque, you have a little gear turning a bigger gear. This is geared for torque. It has to be, because the weight of it and the tires require a lot of torque, because it doesn't actually steer. It steers like the foam vehicles. What they do is they steer like a tank all on one side. So when I'll show you that, when you flip it over, okay, it's the same design as those foam Gravedigger and the one with the guy on it, where it has, you see how it has the separate pieces with the springs. Now this one has 2 springs on each side because it's even more heavy duty, and this whole piece is bigger as well. But when you turn the wheel, see, the back one turns, not the other side. So it's not linked from left to right, it's linked from front to back. So it steers like a tank. Well, you know, the way that the 2 foam vehicles over there steer, the Gravedigger and the one with the guy on it, and the way this steers is you have, you know, one side goes forward and the other side goes backwards, and that's how it can go in a circle or make a tight turn. So you actually don't have front steering. All the other vehicles actually steer, and let's see, the only ones that are not 4-wheel drive are the Chevy Avalanche and the big old Gravedigger. Those are not 4-wheel drive. So I want to show you something that's kind of fun. Now, the smallest little monster truck is this one here, okay? And it's the Monster Patrol. And look at how tiny the Monster Patrol is. Now, the Monster Patrol is 4-wheel drive. It has a spring suspension on the front, and it has headlights and rear lights in the back. This is a Radio Shack Zip Zap. And you can see there, it runs on the 49 megahertz. So you actually have an antenna here that you have to pull up, and you have your little wire antenna on your vehicle. But look at how tiny that thing is. And to think this thing has, you know, spring suspension in the front. It does not have springs in the back. The tires are actually squishy. It has, see, semi-pneumatic tires. And you could modify this. These Zip Zaps came with, you see the gear, see the green gear, and then the pinion gear turning it, all right? And you see there's another gear down on the wheel. So it's 4-wheel drive, okay? See, it has a drive shaft. See the drive shaft there? And then when you turn one of the front wheels, the rear wheels turn too. Okay, so it has, you know, it has a one motor, and then it has a transmission that goes through this drive shaft and runs to the front wheels. Okay, so now it does not have a differential. They all spin together, but it does steer. It even has a steering adjustment on the vehicle. But yeah, it came with, didn't come with, you could buy extra gear kits to change the gearing to make it faster or give it more torque. And it had little tiny motors. You could also buy a faster motor for it. So really, really neat stuff. And I'm going to show you all of these things running. But I just wanted to give you an overview of them. They're just really big, gigantic vehicles. And, you know, you could get, there are hobby quality vehicles that are this big and some even bigger. And they cost a lot of money that people build and have, you know, all kinds of sophisticated things on it. But now let's get ready for the action. So here's our first vehicle to test. It is the Fierce Warrior Extreme Machine mashup that I've made, and it's running great. It pops little wheelies, and it's running better than it ever did because it's got the 3,300 amp hour nickel metal hydride battery, which was not available when this vehicle came out. Vehicles were, you know, 1/3 the power, not even half, even the best ones. And you know what's great, the tires are in great shape, the knobbiness, they haven't worn out. And you know, I haven't driven it hard and jumped it hard and played with it hard either. But I will tell you, the way to store these vehicles is on their sides. If you're going to store a vehicle for a long time, don't store it on its tires. Put it on its side so the tires don't mash and get the rubber bends and cracks and dry rots, or at least gets a flat spot in it, and then it won't run so well. And this thing has ample power to go up hills, there's happy, go up rocks, and you know, it just moves very easily. It's got a lot of power. So right down the curbs. It's a great old vintage RC truck. All right, here's the 12.8 volt Polaris 4-wheel drive, 2 motors vehicle. Pretty quick. And it even lights up. Pretty zippy. And take it up off the curb. I don't think it has the power to go up the curb, but well, not quite. Doesn't have big enough wheels. That's pretty fun. And it's pretty fast. And this is available right now. Still get this at Walmart and I think Target. See how it climbs some rocks. And over lights. Can't get it to do that again. All right, pretty good. All right, so here we go, our tank steering foam-tired ATV. So that's how it turns like a tank, see that? And you want it to go up the hill, both at the same time. But because of the foam tires being kind of smooth, it has a lot of power, but not a lot of traction. Which kind of is good in another way, because then it steers without really tearing itself up or the ground. Pop some wheelies. Kind of struggles a little bit on turning. Take it into the street. And then have it do some donuts. As you can see, it doesn't like donuts. Who doesn't like donuts? Look at that. Oh, almost up the curb. Almost. Not quite enough power. All right, here we go. Four-wheel drive, four-wheel steering, Storm Crusher. Tough steering when it's stopped, you know, but that's because it's heavy and it's got very grippy wheels. And so you see it climbs better than the foam, but it's a heavy vehicle, although it is more powerful and has better grip, so it doesn't turn as well in the grass when it's not moving. You have to turn it either on loose ground or while it's already moving. So definitely one of the biggest and heaviest vehicles I have. I think I have another vehicle or two that might be actually heavier, but completely different designs. You can see it actually turns pretty well on wet pavement, better than the other. Let's see how it does going up a curb. That one can go up the curb. Well, I gotta say, for Toys R Us's last hurrah, not bad. You know, it's a fast lane vehicle, and fast lane custom-made various radio-controlled vehicles for Toys R Us, and I have several, and we will be seeing those in the future. And there you go, idling speed. And there is a button to turn the sound off. It'll just be lights but no sound. Okay, so here's the big, giant, light Gravedigger. See how that goes. Told you it's fast. And pretty torquey. You can actually see the differential work where the wheel that is slipping is the one that is doing most of the spinning. And can make it up a curve, because big wheels plus enough power and speed will do it. It's fun to watch the body sway with the suspension. See, it climbs well. So this is, you know, I think where New Bright, even though their vehicles are simpler and in a physical sense, engineering-wise, less complex, what they've really gotten good at is making something very light and utilizing less performance parts in order to achieve a pretty high performance pretty inexpensively. And this is actually quite a bit of fun. I hate banging into the curb like that, but it seems to be tough enough to handle it. See that differential spin. All right, Gravedigger. All right, so I didn't want to leave you without showing you this little mini monster truck with all the trappings of a big truck, having springs in the front and gears and four-wheel drive and semi-pneumatic tires and lights. And the way it works is this is the zip-zap remote, and the vehicle connects down on here, and these two terminals are the charging terminals. There's 4 AAA batteries in the remote, and when you lock the vehicle down, there's a release button here. When you lock the vehicle down, you see these contacts. They make contact here, and then it begins to charge the vehicle. That's a little rechargeable battery that comes installed inside the car. It is 49 megahertz, so you have a little bit of an antenna to have to pull up. And this is like 20 years old, so here you go. I charged it up, and we're gonna zip and zap. So let's watch that. And look, I want you to see the rear view, the rear lights. It's quick, and then you have headlights in the front that light up. And watch it turn. See it turn. So. And let's see, got some power. I have it go over my fingers. See that? Not backwards. Let's see. Here we go. So there you go. A little monster truck. So my final thoughts on these trucks is that I haven't run most of them in quite a while, and I think they're a lot of fun. I especially look forward to running that big giant Gravedigger more. I ran it a little bit when I first got it, and then I just held on to it for doing a show. And now that I've run it some more, I'm really impressed with it. I really like what New Bright has done, making something so big and so simple. And it seems like it's really, I think it's fast, it's quick, it's a lot of fun, it's durable. I think it'd be a great addition. I do think $110, $100 is too much for it. I think, if you could get it for somewhere around $50 somewhere, that's definitely worth it, maybe even a little bit more. But it's just fun. The Polaris surprised me. I haven't run that in a while, and I remember thinking it was too slow, but I don't think so. I think it's all right. I think it runs good. It is four-wheel drive. It sticks to the road really well. Nice knobby tires, and is quicker than I expected, and good handling. The old Radio Shack truck, the old Fierce Warrior, I remember how that thing runs. It's just a great truck. It's heavy, and with an improved battery, it just runs much better, makes it much more worthwhile. The truck that the ATV with the guy on it, and then the Gravedigger one that I made to look, that's the same vehicle really. Not very impressive. They're slow, but they don't even climb things very well. They don't turn well. Probably though would be fun on snow. I have run it on snow, and I remember liking it, and but it's been a while, and I think that it is fun on snow, and if you can, maybe even on hard packed dirt or wet dirt, it would be good. That big heavy Storm Crusher, I actually like that a lot. It does have a lot of power, a lot of climbing power, and I was impressed with how well it could turn on wet pavement. And I know that thing is very good in the snow. It's got a lot of power and nice, good knobby tires. And not to be forgotten is the little Zip Zap monster truck. I've always been impressed with that thing, with how well it runs, and it's quick, and just all the features it has. Just being able to know that somebody made that with all that is just an excellent addition to the Toy Museum. So GL1 signing out. I hope you enjoyed that show. Thank you.